final episode of Downton Abbey starts tonight. My hair looks crazy. Let's finish off last series, shall we? So it's the Christmas special and so much has happened. I have pages and pages of notes, so trying to condense this into a short-ish video, it's going to be hard. So the episode begins with Lady Mary off to prison to visit Anna. And because nothing ever good happens to Anna, she is now in deeper trouble with the police finding out that as a child or young person she tried to stab her stepfather. Her stepfather kept trying to come on to her and she knew eventually he would try and attack her, so she kept a knife with her, and when he did try it she hit him with the knife. And somehow the police have found out about this, so seeing as they know that Green's a rapist, they suspect that he has raped her. It seems she has previous for trying to kill rapists. So Bates does the only thing he can think to do, which is confess to the murder and run away to Ireland. Lord Grantham knows he's in Ireland and has an address to contact him, so he asks Cora whether he should turn him into the police. Cora says no, and he is glad that they both have criminal minds. That's right, Lord Grantham and Lady G, criminal masterminds, guys. With Bates confessing, Anna is free to go and she comes back to Downton. Not content with this, Mosley hatches a plan with his psychic Baxter. When are they going to get together? And off they go, spending every single day off they have for the next, 6 months, walking around York, trying to find the pub that Bates went to, because Bates can't remember the pub he went to the day that Green was murdered. After 60 or so pubs, they manage to find the right one and return back to Downton to tell them the good news that they have found the landlord and he will talk to the court and testify that Bates was indeed in York. The Dowager Countess tells everyone that they have found Princess Carogan. It was a surprisingly Dowager heavy episode actually, and full of very excellent one-liners. She sends Cora and Robert and crew off to the Moorlands to Lady Rose's new family for a week of shooting. And as she sees them off at the train station, Robert says to his mum, "Oh, I'm surprised you've come to see us off." And the Dowager Countess says, "Must you always think of me as a salmon, laying my eggs and swimming off to the sea?" What? So back at Grantham House, is it Grantham House? Wherever she lives, Denker and Spratt are up to their usual hijinks. The Dowager Countess goes on about this soup that she used to have when she was younger and felt ill and how great it was. Denker says that she could make a soup that was great. Spratt's like, yeah, okay, whatever, go on then. So a little competition goes down. The whole time the Dowager Countess is just so on to both of them, but just finds great delight in winding the two of them up. Denker goes up to Downton Abbey to get a soup making lesson from Daisy and Mrs Patmore. Obviously her soup is disgusting, so Daisy hatches a plan in which she will make some soup for Denker, sending Denker off with the ingredients, and then will deliver Daisy soup, which will be delicious, and she can just pretend that she's made the soup. Spratt, however, works this out, because Daisy cannot tell a lie, and is just really blatantly obvious whenever she gets caught by him. Spratt finds the soup, pours it down the sink, so Denker is forced to make her own soup, which the Dowager Countess tastes, and because Spratt is being so cocky about the fact it's disgusting, the Dowager Countess is like, what delicious soup. I'm too full right now, but it's delicious. And Denker's really smug and it's the best. The princess arrives and she is the grumpiest person you have ever met in your life. The Dowager Countess has offered her her clothes, a room to stay in, so she's really trying, but this is the grumpiest woman ever. You thought Lemonface was bad. She is grumpy. And it turns out that she has reason to be grumpy. She later tells Isabel that when they were younger, the Dowager Countess and Prince Carogan were going to elope, but they were betrayed by her maid, who told the princess. The princess caught up with them, dragged the Dowager Countess out of the carriage by her hair and sent her off back to her husband. And for that, Violet has always been grateful, because she realised what she was going to lose in her family and her life. Isabel says to her, "So you never strayed again?" And she replies, "I never risked everything again." And Isabel's like, "That's not what I asked." And she's like, "Don't forget we were the Edwardians." In other words, she was slagging about with everyone. In the last episode, Isabel sent Dickie off with a request to get his sons on side, otherwise she wouldn't marry him. She's received a letter from the sons saying, "Please stop making our dad try and be our friends. We don't like you, we're never going to like you." So she calls it off with him and doesn't tell him about the letter. A few months later, he finds out about the letter and comes around and confronts her about it, and they pretty much break up for good, and it's terribly sad. But the Dowager Countess, as I said, she was on it with the zingers, says, "Well, Dr. Clarkson will be so pleased." And then she laughs at her own joke like it's the funniest thing she's ever heard. Thomas, again, like the Dowager Countess, was a major part of this episode. So everyone's gone up to the Moorlands to visit. Lemonface has sent a letter to Cora saying that she's very cross that she hasn't been invited. And as Bates is dealing with his wife in prison and being on the run, Thomas has been promoted to valet for the time being. And he is so excited, and he's trying to prove to everyone that he can do this and that he is the best. While they're packing up their guns, Thomas is well and truly back to his ways. Bates says that he would cut an arm off if he thought it would help Anna's cause, to which Thomas tells him, "We can't have you doing that, we don't want you wobbly at both ends." Everyone arrives at the Cinderbys' house to find that their butler, Mr. Stoll, hates them. He hates everyone, to be honest. He particularly hates the Cinderbys because they are of new money. So he's all airs and graces to their faces, but is completely rude to them and hates them behind their backs, but they all know. He also knows all the secrets from Downton Abbey, including the story of Anna and Bates and the fact that Branson used to be the chauffeur, which he highly disapproves of. So he's slagging them all off, and Thomas is not impressed because although it is his job to slag them all off, much in the way of Mean Girls, it's only okay when he says it. There's also a shot where Stoll was snarling like a lion, just so we all know that he's evil. He basically refuses to serve Tom at any time, which really annoys Mary, because as we know, Mary's already pining over the fact that Tom's going to leave. And this gets mentioned so many times in this episode. So she asks, "Can't we have a black mark put against his name? Can't Barrow come up with something?" Because Barrow is known for his scheming, and if you want a scheme going down, you gotta ask him. So he forges a letter saying that Lord Cinderby only wants really plain food for dinner. When he's being served the food, unsurprisingly, as Lord Cinderby is grumpy, he just gets grumpier and asks what on earth's happened. The blame gets put on Stoll, and he is not impressed and not happy that he's being told off in front of everyone at the dinner table. During the argument, however, Lord Cinderby shouts at Thomas and calls him a stupid fool, which Thomas doesn't take too kindly either. So downstairs he befriends Stoll, who's had too much to drink, and he reveals his secrets that he knows about his master to Thomas. Later on at a party, a woman arrives with a small child, asking if she can see Lord Cinderby. And Rose suddenly realises what is going on, and it is in fact Lord Cinderby's illegitimate child. Rose, quick thinking, runs over to her and pretends it's one of her friends. She gets Robert included and Mary, and they manage to make out like they've known this woman all along. The poor woman's been given a letter saying that he wants to meet her alone and there'll be no one else there, so she's just as shook up by the whole thing as he is. They cover for him and manage to get the woman and the child out of the house without anyone, especially his wife, realising what's actually going on. And Lord Cinderby finally welcomes Rose into their family, with Robert saying, "The cutest thing, which I thought summed up Rose completely, was that she will love you forever if you just let her." Like, that just summed up her character so well. Throughout the time up in the Moorlands, Robert every now and again suddenly goes, and Cora's like, "What is wrong with you?" And he's like, "Oh, it's nothing." Finally, his dramatics get too much, and she's like, "For goodness sake, just tell me what's happening." So he's been to the doctors and he thinks he might have angina. Cora goes mad at him for not telling her and tells him he needs to take it easy and that he is off the shoot and he is not allowed to continue and must rest. Which is good because someone from the estate has invited someone to stay and they are coming to the shoot, which messes up the numbers, which Mary is not happy about. How could someone be so disrespectful as to come to a shoot and mess up their numbers? Mary hates the person without even knowing him, which obviously means that she's going to fall in love with him. And she pretty much does. Spends the whole time bickering with him and telling him that he's rude and disrespectful, even though he's never been on a shoot in his life, so he had no idea about numbers anyway. By the time he leaves the house, Mary ends up accidentally complimenting him on how great his car is. It turns out he's a racing driver, so that's only going to end well for Mary, isn't it? We all know what happens to people she loves and fast cars. Back at Downton, Robert goes back to the doctors. It turns out he hasn't got angina, he's just got an ulcer. But as Cora's freaking out about him, she's told him he has to take it easy and look after himself more. So he's only allowed white fish, chicken and no alcohol, to which he's like, whoa, steady on. So they come to a compromise that he's not allowed to drink until Christmas Eve, but he has to be careful on Christmas Eve because he will not have drunk for a long time. Could they be more blatant with what is about to happen? Robert tells Cora he's going to confront Edith with the fact he knows that Marigold is her daughter, because Edith cannot keep a secret. At the start of the episode, when they're leaving to go to the Moorlands, Mary walks over to George and is like, George, come to mummy. And then Edith's like, yes, Marigold, come to me. And it's so blatant. How Mary hasn't clocked, I do not know. So he goes into Edith and is like, yo, I know it's your daughter. And Robert says, my dear, I think I owe you forgiveness just as much as you need forgiveness from me. And it's quite sweet. In the episode, Tom also says that he knows that Marigold is her daughter. Christmas Eve arrives and everyone's very festive. Mrs. Patmore is in like the most jolly Christmas mood you've ever seen. She's been overcome with the spirit of Christmas and everyone can't understand why she's so happy. Tom is leaving and he's taking Sibby with him to America. He's going to leave after Christmas. So there's a lot of pining from the whole family, really. Robert's already asked Cora if he can ask Tom to just leave Sibby with them. Like that was ever going to happen. Mrs. Hughes and Carson spent the time there in the Moorlands looking at houses for their retirement B&B. They find the perfect one. The whole time Mrs. Hughes has been quite reluctant to this. And when it comes to him saying he's going to put her offer in, she has to admit why. Turns out she hasn't got any money. She's got a sister, Becky, who is in care because she has some kind of mental disability. And Mrs. Hughes has spent every penny she has getting care for her sister. So basically she's a pauper and has no way of retiring. Christmas Eve they have a party for the estate and the servants. There's lots of singing, there's lots of booze. Up in the nursery, Mary, Edith and Tom all seem to have had the great idea to go and hang the stockings up while the kids are out. And in that moment they decide they're going to say a word to Sybil, as it's probably the last time they'll all be together as the three people that loved her the most. It is so sad, guys. The last like 10 minutes of this episode were just an emotional roller coaster, but this got me. So they all stand in a circle. Tom takes the hand of each of them. And even Mary and Edith eventually hold hands and they're like, dearest Sybil, wherever you are, we love you. Oh, it's the worst. It just got me really bad and I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. But, Sybil, can't we just turn back time and she can live forever? While this is happening, Robert walks past with a glass in hand. Because you guessed it, he's on his way to getting drunk. And he asked Tom, please leave Sibby with us. And Tom's like, nah mate, it's my daughter, I'm not going to do that. And Lord Grantham's like, yeah I know, I didn't think it was going to work, but can you blame a guy for trying? Down at the party, Carson asks Mrs. Hughes if she has a minute and if they can have a word. I'm telling you, emotional roller coaster. So Carson tells her that he's bought the house and she's really pleased for him and is really glad that he was able to do it without her. And he tells her that he's put her name down as buyer as well. She's a bit outraged. Like, she's like, I don't want your charity. In the future, if you want to leave, I don't want you to be tied down and stuck with me. And then Carson says, but that's the thing, I want to be stuck with you. And then he proposes to her and I've waited so long for this, and they proposed, and it's amazing because she doesn't even say yes right away. She's like, let's celebrate. And he's like, what are we celebrating exactly? And Mrs. Hughes is like, I can still get a proposal at this age. And he was like, oh, is that all? And he looks really sad, and it's like, oh bless, Mrs. Hughes, why are you toying with him like this? And then she says, no, of course I'll marry you, you old booby. And it's like, that's the greatest response to be proposed to ever. So Mrs. Hughes and Carson are getting married, guys. Back at the party, Robert's completely just plastered and goes to make a speech. Cora rushes over to Tom and is like, help, he's about to make a speech and this is not a good idea. So as he goes to open his mouth, Tom takes over and is like, can I just say how great a party Lord Grantham has put on for us? And gets everyone to sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, saving the moment. But they can't stop him from making speeches for too long. Eventually he makes a speech and is surprisingly sober. In it he says to Tom how much he loves him and how he's part of the family. Guys, the emotions. At the end of the speech, Cora's like, how on earth did you manage to look so sober? And he says, my dear, you forget I trained as a soldier. And then he hiccups, and it's quality. So then we finish the episode with everyone singing Oh Come On You Faithful. During it, in what is just the creepiest thing I've ever seen, Bates looms out of the shadows. I think he gets clocked by Mrs. Hughes. I think it was Mrs. Hughes. And just goes like a murderer, literally like a murderer. And then he creeps up behind Anna and they're like, oh, I love you. And then they creep off together. But it would be so easy to supercut that into he's about to murder her. It's amazing. And then we finish with them still singing. And it gets to the line that includes the words Virgin's Womb. And the shot is just Mrs. Patmore and Daisy. And literally as they say Virgin's Womb, Mrs. Patmore looks over at Daisy and smirks. And it's the greatest thing I have ever seen in my life. And end scene. So that's it, that's how it ended, and today is the day for the final series of Downton Abbey, and I don't know what to do with myself. I've written a blog post which I'll link below with the 10 things I want to see happen in this final series of Downton Abbey. Let me know what you want to see happen, any things that just have to happen before we can let this end. Let me know.